1. So, we were slammed, as I'm sure many of you were on Mother's Day. I solo manned the front in the evening, so I took all the orders via phone or in person or tablet, and interacted with all customers, drivers, and gave them their orders and took payments by myself, while my waitress packaged and labeled them in the back. Overview. Business-wise, great. High sales with near-perfect order accuracy of mods and made-to-orders from my hard-working team. Customers who ordered takeout, they were lovely and tipped generously. All this went to my lone amazing waitress who really showed up and proved herself tonight. I don't take tips ever, anyway. These customers and I had nice chats while they were paying. I wished them all a wonderful Mother's Day, and they did the same for me. Then we had the DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub drivers. Most of them were patient and understanding, of course, but a select few were so horribly condescending and insulting. One guy came in 10 minutes before the order was even supposed to be ready, and I politely told him, hey, it's going to take 10 to 15 minutes more. The dude goes off on a rant about how I'm not smart enough to comprehend what he's going through as a delivery driver, and that all of this is over my head and I can't possibly understand. Now, I can't give you the satisfying ending of me telling this dude to go fuck himself and get out of my restaurant, because as the owner I can, because there is no higher up. But I really do care about my customers, and that their hot food gets to them on time, especially for their special Mother's Day. But I always had the choice to do that. My servers, previously, didn't. I really didn't give a shit about what the guy said to me because his opinion is meaningless. But the thought that he can say that to my servers when I'm not around, and then my servers feel obliged to take it, was unacceptable. Effective immediately as a policy change, my servers can tell these guys where to go if they're disrespectful, and I will 100% have my team's back because I trust them. I told my waitress on duty this, and she had the biggest smile on her face. I have reported this delivery driver in question on Grubhub and DoorDash. He is banned from my restaurant already. I have spoken to a few other popular restaurant owners who I know will do the same, and I will be relentless until the delivery partners fire him completely. Nobody in this industry should have to deal with that ever. Thank you for all your service. Hope you had a nice Mother's Day. Overall, I'm glad I got a little more insight into the bull you all have to deal with every day, so I can be a better manager. Cheers. 2. I used to work at the local pizzeria and Italian restaurant. It was a family-owned business and I really enjoyed it, and actually was a manager for a short time, but the longer I was there, it felt like it just kept getting worse and worse. I have so many funny stories. So often you hear about the awful customers, and I've had plenty of those. But some of my best days there were because of the customers. But this is not one of those days. This story is about Henry. Henry would come in a couple of times a month with his 2 boys. The kids were always super polite. They looked to be about 11 and 13. But their dad could be very difficult. Every single time he came in, without fail, something would be wrong with his order. Us cashiers didn't even know his name for the longest time. We just called him Warm Cheese Guy, because he'd always ask for the cheese that came with his breadsticks to be warmed up. That wasn't an unreasonable request, but it was difficult for us to carry out, because our cheese was in little 2-ounce plastic tubs. To warm it up, we had to take the cheese from the cup, put it in a ceramic bowl, microwave it until it was steaming hot, put it back in the cup and bring it out, and even then, he would come back a few minutes later to say that it wasn't warm enough. The thing that made this a difficult situation was that our cashiers and kitchen staff were mostly high school students, and weren't always as on top of things as they should be. So whenever I saw Henry and his boys walk through the doors, I pressed pause on whatever I was doing to take over the cash register for their order, and afterwards I'd go around to the kitchen staff and make sure they understood what the order was, because Henry's orders would always include some kind of special instructions on how to prepare it. And then I would bring the food out to them myself and make sure it met their satisfaction. Although Henry never smiled, after a few times of doing this he did become less hostile towards the staff, and a few months later, when I made a mistake on his order, he even went so far as apologizing for sending it back. I'm actually tearing up a little bit as I write this, which shocks me a bit. It's amazing how the people who irritate you the most can become some of your favorite people over time. 3. Little backstory. I've worked in the restaurant industry for almost 3 years, starting out as a hostess and working my way up to bussing, then expo and food runner, barback, event caterer, and finally server, all at the same restaurant. I feel confident with the menu and can answer most questions without hesitation. Or at least I thought I could, until I had one of the most absurd requests that left me without any idea of how to answer. It was the 3rd week into my role as a server, and the dining room was filling up quickly as the noon rush commenced. 4 out of my 6 tables were full with eager faces and hungry bellies. The hostess, walking briskly with a mixed look of concern and amusement, stopped me and asked if I was okay to take a two-top. I told her yes, but asked what her expression was about. She replied with a smile, "You'll find out." She walked 2 older gentlemen to my table, and I greeted them with waters in hand. I went through the normal server script, asking how they were doing, if they'd like anything besides water, and if they'd like to hear specials. After listing off our 3 specials, the gentleman wearing a Vietnam War veteran cap and heavy leather jacket said to me, "I'd like the yellowfin tuna tacos." These tacos hold a special place in the lunch crowd's heart, apparently, but our owner decided to switch up the menu and turn them into brisket tacos. People were upset, but not to the length this man was. I politely told him we had changed the menu and were now offering brisket tacos instead. He retorted, "You don't understand. I want the tuna tacos." And that's when it happened. The older, unassuming, no-nonsense-looking man pulled from his leather jacket a frozen, vacuum-sealed slab of yellowfin tuna and puts it on the table, points at it, looks me dead in the eyes and says, "Tuna tacos, please." My jaw drops. I don't know what to say. I look at the fish, then back at him, then back at the fish. I thought he must be joking. There is no way this little old man carried this frozen, now half-thawed from being in his jacket, piece of fish all the way from his home into the restaurant, and knew he would have to ask his server to cook it up for him, and slap it between some tacos with fries on the side. I explained to him, holding back laughter, that this is surely against health code, but I will double-check with my manager. He tells me he knows the owner personally, and that he would certainly do him this one favor. He also doesn't spare me any details about how he caught this magnificent fish, and that he spent so much time, money, and energy to bring it home with him and then into the restaurant. I pick up the frozen fillet and present it to my manager. He bursts out laughing and tells me he's almost positive this is against health code, but he wants to double-check with the guys on the line. We walk to the kitchen and ask the head chef. With a raised brow and expression that makes me feel like an idiot for asking, Chef confirms our suspicion that it is indeed against health code. I walk back to the table with the news and apologize, but congratulate him for trying. He decides to order the brisket tacos, but throughout their stay he constantly reminds me how much better the tacos would have been if it was his tuna in there instead. I'm waiting for the day he comes back in, but this time with a live animal. 4. This happened more than 20 years ago. A little background. This restaurant was in a large retail store that is no longer open. This isn't a high-end restaurant, but the very affordable kind that is popular with families and seniors. They often had 2-for-1 coupons, so evenings were very busy. We had a great manager who worked with us, and as a group of servers, we covered and helped each other out. So on to the story. Me is me. Duh. CM, cool manager. HC, head cook. C1, wife. IC, idiot customer. HC, hero customer. And GM as general manager. It was a very busy night with tables turning over many times. We had no one to clean tables or run food. It was a very affordable 2-for-1 fish and chips or clubhouse sandwiches. So there are many families coming in and many, many seniors who are regulars coming in. Tips might not have been in the $20 or more category, but an 8-hour shift could net a server $200. So it was good money for time, plus company paid more than minimum wage and never server wage. CM is serving one of the sections that is slower to turn over, so he can help out the other sections that are busy, and allowing us to make more money in tips. It is a loud place with people talking when an older lady screams her husband has collapsed. CM responds to see what he can do, and once he sees what SWAT calls for HC. They are our first aiders for the restaurant. People have stopped eating to stare. Other people move out of the way to allow the man to move to the ground. HC yells at the cashier to call 911. They check the man and wife said he had chest pains just before. They see he isn't breathing and start CPR on the man. While the rest of us try to keep serving people, the wife stands there crying. Enter IC, who comes up to the crying lady and asks her, since she isn't going to keep eating, can she move so she and her husband can sit down and order? Yep, those are her words. Then she asks CM and HC to drag the man to another area to do whatever it is that you're going to do to him. It isn't like he's going to live. As I was working in the section next to this one, I asked the lady to move and go back to the entrance. Why should I have to wait? Because they're playing doctor. I was speechless and told her to move away. She complies, and a table in my section opened. She jumped on it and loudly complained that she had better not have to wait long for food and to clean the table before serving any customers in that area. While I do clean table, I tell her orders are backing up and that we are down a cook. First responders come along with fire department, as that is the way it works in my province. They take over CPR. This was before mechanical means were widely seen. They load the man and his wife goes with them. Anyone who has ever done CPR knows how exhausting it is, and both need a short break. IC is having none of it. She has now received her food and is full of complaints about the wait. So while her husband stays at the table, she goes to customer service to complain about it. GM is just outside the store, making sure C1 can either go with the first responders, or he will have a staff member drive her. Comes back to C1 whining about how she shouldn't have to pay for her meal. HC steps in and yells loudly at her. Lady, you should be paying double for your meal. You kept these people working to serve during an emergency while you tried to get the lady to move herself in her husband's body, who might not live so you can eat. Could you be more entitled? He looks at the GM and says, if you give her free food, I'm going to complain to head office. You have the best workers who did an amazing job during this. At this point, other customers chime in, so GM had to say no or risk a small riot. IC responds by saying, I am never eating here again. HC says, yeah, lady, sure they'll miss your $5.99 in the grand scheme of things. Note, she came back over and over. I'm happy to say that man lived and his wife came back to update us and try to pay for her bill for that night. It was declined, but she did give 3 letters to customer service. One for CM and one for HC, each contained $500, and a letter to head office to say they should be given a raise. Don't know about the raise, but they were known company-wide. Great managers helps to have happy customers and happy staff. Still miss that place, but stay in touch with the staff even now. Bonus story. We had an all-you-can-eat shrimp customer trying to make it a better deal. Says to the lady with him, we can order 1 meal and share it. I say to the customer, all you can eat is not y'all can eat shrimp. Should give servers a laugh. Please remember, during these trying times of just takeout, be kind to those serving you and tip them. And after all this passes, remember they should be tipped then too. Oftentimes they work under grueling workplace rules. They enforce the rules, they don't make them. Take care and stay safe. 5. After graduating from high school, I started working at a buffet. The major difference between this job and the last was that both of my bosses were awesome. If customers got a bit too handsy or rude, they'd kick them out without a second thought. I'm still friends with them to this day. It was my 3rd day there when a table of 18 was sat in my section. At that time, I was the only waitress without a table, so there wasn't much of a choice on where to seat them. They didn't make a reservation because that's not a common thing to happen at a buffet. And since we don't take orders or deliver food, it wasn't unreasonable to expect a new waitress to take care of that larger table on her own. With a little help, of course. The only special thing about this table was one guest. This man claimed to be the tallest person in Canada at the time. I'm not sure if that's actually true, but I believed it. I think he mentioned he was around 7'4", that's 223 centimeters, tall. This wouldn't be an issue, but he had an insatiable appetite. Probably a smart move to bring a guy to a place that has unlimited food, but nobody took into account how much a giant like this could drink. I think I served him a flat of pineapple juice by the time he was finished his meal. And since pineapple juice was actually one of our more expensive non-alcoholic drink options, the bill was adding up. Needless to say, that table had me running my ass off. I was elated when they told me that their bill would be all together, so I totaled it up, got my boss to double-check my math, and dropped off the check. As I was cleaning up some dishes from their table, when suddenly, out of the blue, one of the patrons asked me, "Have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?" Now, I went to Catholic school for my whole life, but I happened to be the only child in that school who wasn't actually religious. I probably could have become a member of the faith, that is, if I hadn't been singled out multiple times throughout the years. I was occasionally treated as a lesser being for not having been dunked in water as a baby. My teacher in 3rd grade told me I was going to hell for not being baptized, so I was a bit resentful, if I'm going to be honest. But I wasn't going to tell them that. However, I still decided to answer somewhat truthfully. I am still trying to find the right path. Suddenly, my tray was taken from my hands, and I had someone standing in front of me saying, "Repeat after me." I'm not sure why I did. Maybe it was because I had already chanted similar words throughout 12 years of school. Or maybe it was the little voice in my head reminding me that I was a broke college student, and I couldn't afford to just walk away. Once he said, "You have now accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior." They all cheered and asked me how I felt. Again, I wasn't lying when I said I felt good. I was having a good day after all. One awkward moment wasn't going to ruin anything. That was until I heard these next words. "That's the best tip you're ever going to get." You guessed it. $0 on a bill that was over $300. Actually, that's not true. They left me a pamphlet to their church. But it felt less like a tip and more like adding salt to the wound. So I immediately chucked it into the trash. Looking back, I can say that I no longer hold resentment towards this group. The whole scene felt planned at the time, but I believe that they had good intentions. For the most part. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates number 97. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. I've been making more of a conscious effort to use subscriber stories this week. Not that I don't use them, I certainly do, but I want to keep people waiting less time. I want to be a good Hellfreezer. So that's what I've been doing this week, and if you have a story yourself, of course you can send it along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. That'll find its way to me. For not just spinning plates, whatever you think might work, even if it's something I don't do, I'm sure I'll find a home for it. Let's see, what day is this? Well, I keep thinking it's Thursday, but it's actually early on Friday. You guys will get this one on Saturday. Right, we'll probably have a gaming stream of some sort on Saturday. I'm not sure what time. I'm going to try and do it a bit earlier, if I can, because I think sometimes I do them too late for a lot of people. I certainly too late for a lot of the UK folks, so they miss out on it. So I'm going to be moving the times around a little bit, just so everyone gets a chance to attend. I generally find if I stream earlier, more people pop in. Also want to do a bit of baking this weekend, so I might actually leave that to Sunday. Should have about everything I need. Only thing I'm not sure of is flour. And that's like gold dust these days, so we'll see. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.